AITA for not letting my sister use my house for her soul-searching retreat after she ruined my relationship. Okay, this is going to sound like a mess, but here goes. I, 29M, have an older sister, Katie, 34F. Growing up, we were always pretty close, but she's a very independent, self-absorbed person. She always wanted to do her own thing, live on her own schedule, and didn't like anyone telling her how to live her life. But despite her quirks, she's my sister, so I've always had her back. However, things have been rocky between us ever since she interfered in my relationship with my ex-girlfriend, Anna, 28F. So, here's the backstory. I was dating Anna for about 2 years, and it was a really solid relationship. We had some minor disagreements, sure, but nothing major. We were in the middle of planning a future together when Katie decided to step in. She didn't like Anna. It wasn't anything personal, really. She just didn't think Anna was good enough for me. Katie had this idea that she needed to protect me from being hurt, and I can't even count the number of times she criticized Anna behind her back. I always defended Anna, but it wore on me. One day, after a huge blow-up with Anna, when I found out that Katie had been talking badly about her to my parents, Anna broke up with me. She said she couldn't deal with the constant negativity from my family, and it destroyed me. We ended up parting ways, and it felt like the end of the world for me at the time. I spent a lot of time moping and being angry at both Katie and myself. Now, fast forward about 6 months later, and Katie comes to me with a new request. She tells me that she's been going through a life crisis and needs to find herself. She says she wants to do some kind of spiritual retreat at my house because it's quiet, secluded, and she needs to get away from everything for a while. Honestly, I wasn't thrilled about it. The last thing I wanted was to host Katie in my house after everything that happened with Anna, but I still tried to be the good brother and said I'd think about it. A couple of weeks go by, and Katie reaches out again, saying she's booked everything and that she'll be arriving in a few days. I still hadn't agreed to it, so I was already feeling frustrated. I decided to be blunt with her and told her that, given the history between her and Anna, I didn't think it was a good idea for her to stay at my house. I explained that it would be uncomfortable for me, and I didn't want to feel like I was being used as a spiritual sanctuary when she had a hand in destroying my relationship. She didn't take this well. Katie flipped out on me, calling me selfish and accusing me of being too attached to my ex and still bitter. She said I needed to get over it, that I wasn't seeing the bigger picture, and that I was letting a relationship that ended months ago dictate my decisions. She said I should be supporting her instead of holding grudges, and she went on and on about how I wasn't being a good sibling by not offering her a place to stay. Honestly, I didn't know how to handle it. Part of me wanted given just to keep the peace, but another part of me knew that it would only cause more resentment. My friends were split on the issue. Some said I should let her stay and work through the drama, because family is important, while others said I was right to stand my ground, especially since she caused so much damage to my relationship with Anna. I ended up sticking to my decision and told Katie that she couldn't stay at my house. She was livid and said that I was completely unsupportive. She kept pushing me, saying I should move on and that I should stop using Anna as an excuse to be a jerk. I told her that I wasn't holding on to Anna, but that this wasn't about her. It was about how Katie acted towards someone I cared deeply about. I needed space from that drama, and I wasn't going to let it be forced back into my life. Katie left without saying much else. The fallout from this has been huge. Our parents are now on her side, saying that I'm being unreasonable. They think I should just let it go, since Anna is no longer in the picture, and that Katie needs a safe place to figure things out. My friends are divided. Some think I did the right thing by standing up for myself, while others believe I could have been more understanding of Katie's situation and offered her a place to stay. Now, Katie isn't speaking to me, and I feel like things between us are more strained than ever. I'm starting to question whether I made the right decision, but at the same time, I feel like she's been pretty disrespectful to me and my boundaries. AITA for not letting my sister stay at my house after she caused so much damage to my relationship. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot and motivates me to create even more amazing content just for you. Make sure to turn on notifications so you'll never miss out on a new video. I'm curious, When do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for your support. It truly helps the channel grow. AITA for telling my sister she needs to stop bringing her boyfriend around my family. I, 29F, have a sister, Sarah, 26F, who has been in a relationship with a guy, Matt, 30M, for about 2 years now. I've never really liked Matt. He's fine when it's just the two of them, but when he's around family, he's awful. I can't put my finger on exactly what it is, but something about him rubs me the wrong way. He's obnoxious, talks over people, and often says some really questionable things that make everyone uncomfortable. It's honestly not even that I have a big problem with him personally, but more about how he behaves when he's around us. It's been building up for months now. Sarah and I have always been close growing up, but over the past couple of years, she's changed a lot since getting together with Matt. I'm happy she found someone she loves, but I can't help but feel like she's letting him influence her in a negative way. She used to be fun, kind-hearted, and thoughtful. Now, she just lets Matt say whatever he wants without calling him out, even when he's being rude to the family. It's been bothering me, and I've tried to talk to her about it, but she always brushes me off. Last weekend, our family had a dinner at my parents' house. Matt was invited, of course. The second he walked through the door, I could feel the tension building. He started talking about how the food was kind of basic and not what he expected. My mom spent all day preparing it. Everyone at the table went silent. My mom tried to keep things light, asking him what he usually likes to eat, and he started talking about his gourmet tastes and how people who don't travel the world just wouldn't get it. My dad tried to change the subject, but Matt was determined to steer it back to himself. Sarah was sitting there looking uncomfortable, but she didn't say anything. At some point during the dinner, Matt started complaining about how he wasn't feeling the vibe of the family gathering and said he wanted to leave. I could see Sarah getting flustered, clearly torn between sticking with her boyfriend and her family, but she didn't do anything. So I finally spoke up. I told Matt that if he didn't want to be there, he didn't have to, but that it was disrespectful to keep bringing that energy to family events, especially when my parents were trying so hard to make him feel welcome. I also told Sarah that it was time she had a serious conversation with him about his behavior and how it was affecting everyone. I didn't think that was too much to ask. I wasn't trying to start a fight, but I was tired of watching him act like a spoiled brat and have my sister excuse it. After I said this, Sarah immediately got defensive and told me I was being rude to Matt. She said I was too hard on him, and I didn't even try to understand him. I told her that it wasn't about understanding him. It was about respecting the people around him. She told me I was attacking him for no reason, and that I was trying to ruin their relationship. I tried to explain that it wasn't about ruining anything, it was just about setting boundaries and not letting someone disrespect our family, but she was already too upset to listen. My parents didn't really say anything, they're the type to avoid conflict, but I could tell they were uncomfortable. After that night, Sarah hasn't really spoken to me. She's been distant and hasn't responded to any of my messages. I know she's probably talking to Matt about it, and I can imagine that he's telling her that I'm overstepping, and she probably thinks I'm trying to control her relationship. But I honestly can't just sit there and let him walk all over everyone. I get that he's her boyfriend, but I feel like she's letting him treat her family like crap. I talked to a few of my friends about it, and most of them said I was in the right. They agreed that Matt is rude, and that I shouldn't have to put up with his behavior just because he's dating my sister. But some others have said I should have handled it more diplomatically or should have talked to Sarah privately before making a scene at dinner. I've been feeling really bad about it, though. I didn't mean to cause a huge rift between my sister and me, but at the same time, I don't think I was wrong for standing up for my family. I just wish Sarah would see that I'm trying to protect her from getting too wrapped up in Matt's drama. So, AITA for telling my sister that her boyfriend needs to stop being so disrespectful to our family, even though it caused a big fight. AITA for refusing to help my brother pay his rent after he lost his job. So, I'm in a bit of a family situation, and I'm honestly not sure if I'm in the wrong here or if I'm justified. I, 29F, have an older brother, Matt, 32M, who has always been a bit, well, let's say irresponsible. He's the type of guy who never really had a steady job and has always bounced around from one low-paying gig to the next. Despite this, he's been able to get by, mostly because my parents have always been willing to step in when he gets into financial trouble. They've always had his back, and while I don't think it's the best idea, I kind of accepted that they were going to do it. But here's where things get tricky. About 2 months ago, Matt lost his latest job. He called me up in tears, saying he didn't know what he was going to do because his rent was coming due, and he wasn't sure how he was going to cover it. Matt has always been a bit dramatic, but I could tell he was genuinely upset. He told me he was going to get another job soon, but the way things were looking, he'd be out of a place to live in a couple of weeks if he didn't get help. Now, here's the thing. I've been working hard for years to get my career on track. I have a decent job in a pretty competitive field, and while it's not glamorous, it pays the bills. I live on my own, and I have my own financial responsibilities. I've always been careful about my finances because I know that no one is going to bail me out if something goes wrong. I also don't have the kind of disposable income that just allows me to throw money around willy-nilly. So, when Matt asked me to help him with his rent, my initial reaction was hesitation. But I thought maybe I could help out, so I asked him for details about what happened and how long he thought he'd be in this situation. He told me he had some interviews lined up, but he was waiting to hear back from them. I asked him if he'd already been looking for a new job for a while, and he said he'd been on and off for the last few months, but hadn't really put in the effort he needed. He also admitted he hadn't been paying attention to his bills because he was distracted by other things, like trying to find a better job instead of just taking whatever he could get. That kind of set off a red flag in my head. I understand that losing a job can be stressful, but it sounded like he wasn't doing everything he could to stay afloat. When he asked me for help, I told him I wasn't sure I could afford to cover his rent. I said I would think about it, but made it clear that I couldn't just throw money at the problem. He got really upset with me. He said I was being selfish and that I should help him out since I was doing fine, and it wasn't like he was asking for a huge amount. He was only a few $100s short, and he claimed he would pay me back once he got a new job. That's when I told him that even though I loved him, I wasn't comfortable with giving him money to cover his rent. I offered to help him in other ways, like helping him find a temporary job or doing research on resources available in the area for people facing eviction. Matt didn't take it well at all. He said I was the only one in the family who wasn't willing to step up for him when he needed it. He brought up all the times my parents had helped him and how he'd been there for me when I was in a tough spot years ago, which, to be honest, wasn't a big deal, and I barely remember it. He called me heartless and said that if I really cared about him, I would help him. He kept saying I was acting like I was better than him and that I didn't understand what it was like to struggle. The whole conversation left me feeling really upset and conflicted. I ended up standing my ground and not giving him the money. I did, however, give him a list of resources, including shelters and rent assistance programs. A couple of weeks later, Matt came to visit and told me he'd found a temporary job through one of the resources I gave him, but it wasn't enough to cover his full rent. He was still behind, and his landlord had given him an ultimatum: pay or move out. At this point, my parents stepped in and paid his rent for the month. They said they were just trying to help him get back on his feet, and that it wasn't a big deal because they had the money. They didn't even ask me if I wanted to chip in, which I found a little frustrating. Afterward, Matt sent me a text message thanking me for the resources and said I was being unreasonable for not just giving him the money. He told me I was too independent and needed to learn that it's okay to rely on family when you're struggling. I haven't really responded to him since, but I feel guilty, like maybe I should have helped him out. On the other hand, I don't want to just keep bailing him out when he doesn't seem to be taking his responsibility seriously. So, AITA for not helping my brother pay his rent? I feel like I did the right thing by not enabling him, but the guilt is starting to eat away at me. Maybe I'm too harsh. Maybe I should have been more understanding. Let me know what you think. AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move into my house even though she's struggling financially? I, 29F, have been married to my husband, 30M, Alex, for 5 years now. We live in a suburban neighborhood, and our house is a decent size for just the two of us. It's not huge, but it's cozy with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and we've worked hard to make it feel like home. I've always enjoyed having a quiet, peaceful life, and we've been very lucky that our jobs, though not glamorous, pay well enough for us to live comfortably without worrying about finances. Alex has a sister, Kate, 28F, who I've known since we started dating. Kate has always been a bit of a mess, to put it gently. She's the type to jump from one job to the next without any real long-term career goals. And while she's not irresponsible, she definitely doesn't seem to think things through the way Alex and I do. Over the past few years, she's gone through a series of bad relationships, moved around a lot, and has struggled to make ends meet. Despite that, Alex and I have always tried to help her out when we could. We've given her money when she was in a tight spot, let her crash on our couch for short periods when she was between places, and even helped her with a few bills here and there. Last month, though, things started to get more complicated. Kate called Alex to let him know that she was in a major financial bind. She had lost yet another job due to some miscommunication with her boss and couldn't make rent. She said she had nowhere to go and asked if she could stay with us temporarily while she figured things out. Kate assured us it would only be for a few weeks, maybe a month at most, and that she would be looking for a new job in the meantime. I was hesitant right away. We've had her stay with us before, and while it wasn't terrible, it did disrupt our lives. Alex and I are both introverted people who value our space and quiet time. Sharing our home with someone for an extended period of time just wasn't something we'd ever really been comfortable with. However, Alex was immediately on board with helping Kate out again, and he seemed convinced that it would only be a temporary arrangement. I told Alex I was uncomfortable with the idea and that we needed to have some ground rules in place before we agreed to let Kate stay. I felt it was important to set clear expectations, especially since this wouldn't be the first time we've gone down this road. I suggested that we make sure she pays rent, contributes to groceries, and sticks to a clear timeline for when she would move out. I also said that she needed to be respectful of our space and our routines. Alex didn't seem to think these rules were necessary. He argued that we should just be there for her, that it wasn't the time to be rigid about things. He said that Kate was struggling and that the least we could do was give her a place to stay without adding more stress to her life. I understand where he's coming from, but I also feel like it's important to have boundaries, especially when it comes to living arrangements. I told Alex I wasn't comfortable with the idea of having Kate stay for an open-ended period, especially without her contributing anything financially or taking on any responsibility. I explained that I didn't want to turn our home into a revolving door for Kate's problems, and I didn't think it was healthy for us or for her. I told Alex that if Kate couldn't follow basic house rules or contribute in any way, then I didn't think it would work for her to stay with us. This caused a huge argument. Alex was upset that I wasn't more understanding and that I wasn't willing to help his sister during a difficult time. He said I was being cold and unsympathetic, and he even accused me of not caring about Kate's situation. I tried to explain that it wasn't about not caring. It was about setting boundaries so we could still have a healthy relationship with her without it becoming a source of resentment for us. In the end, Alex agreed to let me take the lead on the conversation with Kate. He said he was fine with whatever I decided, but that I needed to be sensitive about how I approached it. So I called Kate to let her know that while we understood she was in a tough spot, we needed to set some boundaries if she was going to stay with us. I told her that we expected her to help with rent and groceries, and that we'd like to see her making progress on finding a new job and figuring out her next steps. Kate was very hurt by this. She said she didn't have any money to contribute to rent, and that asking her for anything while she was in such a difficult spot felt like a betrayal. She also said she didn't want to feel like she was walking on eggshells in our house, especially after everything she had been through. She was upset that we weren't just offering her a place to stay without all the rules. I explained that I wasn't trying to be harsh, but that we needed to make sure it was a fair and healthy arrangement for everyone. I said that it wasn't about money, but about respect and shared responsibility. After a long conversation, Kate eventually said she would try to find somewhere else to stay. She was still upset, but she thanked me for being upfront with her. Since then, things have been tense between Alex and me. He feels like I should have been more accommodating, while I feel like my boundaries were reasonable. I'm trying to understand that Kate is in a difficult position, but I also don't want to sacrifice our peace of mind for her sake. So, AITA for refusing to let Kate move in unless she agrees to some ground rules and financial contributions. AITA for refusing to let my sister move into my house after she kicked out her boyfriend. I, 29M, have a younger sister, Olivia, 25F, who has always been somewhat difficult to deal with. She's the type of person who expects everything to go her way, and if it doesn't, she tends to throw tantrums or make a scene. We grew up in the same house, but we've always been pretty different. I'm the responsible one, always looking out for the future, while she tends to live in the moment without much thought for the consequences. Growing up, she'd often ask for help with school, her social life, and later on, her relationships, but she never seemed to learn from her mistakes. I've always been there for her, but I've learned to draw boundaries because I don't want to enable her behavior. A few weeks ago, Olivia called me out of the blue asking if she could move into my house. I was a bit surprised, but when I asked why, she told me she had just broken up with her boyfriend and her apartment lease was up in a month, so she needed somewhere to stay temporarily until she figured things out. She said she would figure out what to do and that it would only be for a few weeks at most. I've had a spare room in my house for a while, so on the surface, it seemed like no big deal. I've let her stay with me before for short periods when things weren't going well in her life, and I've always tried to be supportive. But the more I thought about it, the more I hesitated. Olivia's temporary stays always ended up being months, and she never contributed much to the household, either financially or by helping with chores. She also has a tendency to get into drama, which I really don't want in my house. Plus, I work long hours and really value my personal space. I told her I needed to think about it and would get back to her. Olivia didn't take that well. She started sending me text messages about how I was being unreasonable, that she was family, and that if I didn't help her, I was just like the rest of the family who had let her down. She even told me that she would understand if I didn't want to help, but that she had no other options. After a couple of days of thinking it over, I decided to call her and explain why I didn't think it would be a good idea. I told her that I valued my space and that, while I loved her, having her live with me wasn't the best solution for either of us. I suggested she look for a short-term rental or stay with a friend until she figured out her next move. I also told her that if she needed a place to stay for a night or two in an emergency, I would help, but living with me wasn't something I was comfortable with. Olivia did not take this well. She started yelling at me on the phone, calling me selfish and accusing me of not caring about her. She said that I was abandoning her just like everyone else in the family had done, and that I was a terrible brother. She said that I was being dramatic and that it wasn't like she was asking to stay forever. She promised she wouldn't cause any problems and would respect my space. I calmly explained that I had to be realistic about how things would go and that living together would be difficult for both of us. She hung up on me mid-conversation. The next day, I got an angry message from her accusing me of being cold and uncaring, and that she would never ask for help again. She even posted a vague status on social media about how her family just doesn't understand her and how she had to deal with things on her own. I wasn't sure how to react to this. I didn't want to get into a big family feud, but at the same time, I felt like I was in the right. I knew that I wasn't obligated to take her in, and I didn't want to put myself in a situation where I'd regret it later. My friends and coworkers have told me that I'm doing the right thing, and that if she really wants to change, she needs to learn to be independent and find her own way without relying on family. I thought that would be the end of it, but Olivia has continued to text me daily, telling me how disappointed she is in me and how she doesn't think she'll ever forgive me. It's been a few weeks now, and she still hasn't let up. Our parents have gotten involved too, trying to convince me to help her out. They say I'm being too harsh and not understanding of her situation. They also pointed out that I'm lucky to have the space and that helping family in need should come first. At this point, I feel like I'm being pressured from all sides. I've tried to explain to my parents that I'm not saying I don't want to help her, just not in this way. I've tried to offer her alternative solutions, but she keeps rejecting them, claiming they aren't good enough or that she doesn't have time to figure them out. I feel like I'm stuck between wanting to maintain my own boundaries and being pressured to sacrifice my personal comfort for her. Now I'm wondering if I'm being too harsh. It seems like my sister is really struggling. I want to help, but I don't want to let her back into my home, only for it to become a problem again. Am I being unreasonable? Should I give in and let her stay with me, even though I'm not comfortable with it? Or am I right to stand my ground? AITA for refusing to let my sister move into my house after she kicked out her boyfriend? AITA for telling my sister she can't move in with me after her relationship ended? So a little backstory. I, 29F, have always been close with my younger sister, Emma, 25F. We've always had a good relationship, but like any siblings, there were some times when we weren't on the best terms. However, recently, we've grown even closer, especially after I moved in my new place a year ago. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a pretty nice area, and I was excited about having my own space after years of living in shared apartments with roommates. The apartment has a guest room, which I thought would be useful when friends or family came to visit. For the past few weeks, Emma has been going through a rough patch. She had been in a long-term relationship with her boyfriend, James, 26M, for over 3 years. They seemed perfect for each other, or so I thought. But about a month ago, Emma called me out of the blue, saying they had broken up. It was unexpected, and I could tell she was devastated. I immediately tried to comfort her, but I could also sense something else going on. Apparently, James had ended things, and she didn't know why. They had been living together, and he asked her to move out, which was a huge shock to her. She didn't have a lot of savings, so she didn't feel like she could afford to rent a place on her own. That's when she brought up the idea of moving in with me temporarily. I was hesitant at first, but I told her I'd think about it. I love my sister, but I also value my space, and living alone for the first time in years has been a real joy. I'm used to having quiet evenings, being able to walk around in my pajamas without anyone judging me, and having total control over the apartment's atmosphere. That said, I understood that Emma was going through something painful, and I wanted to be supportive. I'm not sure what tipped the balance, but after thinking about it for a few days, I agreed to let her stay with me for a short while. I told her it was only going to be temporary, maybe 2 or 3 weeks at most, and that she could figure things out while staying with me. She was grateful and said she'd try to keep out of my way. Here's where things got tricky. When Emma moved in, she didn't just need a place to crash. She seemed to need constant emotional support. I knew she was heartbroken, and I was sympathetic to her pain, but it felt like she was leaning on me far too much. She would come into my room late at night, crying, and ask if we could talk. I didn't mind listening, but it became a daily occurrence. There were nights where I would be exhausted from work, and all I wanted to do was relax and watch TV, but Emma would come in and pour out her feelings. At first, I didn't say anything. I just tried to be there for her because I knew she was hurting. But after a week, I started feeling overwhelmed. I wasn't getting any time for myself. The apartment that had once been my sanctuary now felt like a constant reminder of someone else's pain. I started to resent the fact that I couldn't have a quiet evening anymore. And then there were the other little things. She didn't really pitch in around the apartment. I understand that she was going through a lot, but I was still doing the majority of the cleaning and cooking. At first, I told myself I'd let it slide because she was struggling, but as the days went by, it started to build up. The last straw was when she started using my things without asking. She'd take my clothes, my makeup, even my food, without saying anything. When I confronted her about it, she apologized, but it felt like she didn't fully understand how much it bothered me. After 2 weeks of living with her, I had reached my breaking point. I came home from work one evening to find that Emma had invited one of her friends over without telling me, and they were sitting in the living room, eating my snacks and watching TV. This was the moment when I finally snapped. I told Emma that I couldn't keep living like this and that it was time for her to go. She was shocked and immediately started crying, saying that she had nowhere else to go and that she was struggling. I felt terrible, but I also felt like I had given her enough time to figure things out. I reminded her that I'd agreed to let her stay temporarily and that it wasn't supposed to be a permanent solution. I told her that I needed my space back and that she needed to find somewhere else to stay. Emma got really upset, and we had a huge argument. She accused me of being selfish and not caring about her. I tried to explain that it wasn't about not caring, but about needing to take care of myself as well. I told her that I had been supportive, but I also needed my boundaries respected. The whole thing left me feeling guilty, but also relieved. After the argument, Emma stayed with a friend for a few days, but she hasn't really spoken to me since. My parents called me, saying I had been too harsh and that I should have let Emma stay longer. They said that family should always come first and that I shouldn't have kicked her out when she was in such a vulnerable state. Now I'm second-guessing myself. Did I overreact? Should I have let her stay longer, even though I felt like I was being taken advantage of. My friends have been divided on the issue. Some of them think I was totally right to stand up for my boundaries, while others say I should have sucked it up for a little longer to help her out. AITA for asking my sister to move out after 2 weeks. AITA for getting upset when my sister tried to sabotage my promotion. I, 30M, have been working at a mid-sized company for about 6 years. It's not the most glamorous job, but I've been putting in the work and moving up slowly but steadily. Last year, after a lot of extra hours and a successful project, my boss pulled me aside and told me that they were considering me for a promotion to a senior role. This was the big break I had been hoping for, and I started making plans for the next phase of my career. My sister, Anna, 28F, and I have always had a complicated relationship. We're not close, and it's mostly due to our personalities being very different. I'm more focused and career-driven, while Anna tends to prioritize her social life, and that's often been a source of tension. She's also a bit competitive with me, and I've noticed that whenever something good happens in my life, she's not the most supportive. So a few months ago, when I found out that I was officially being promoted, I was thrilled. I couldn't wait to tell my family, especially Anna, as I thought she might congratulate me for once. Instead, her response was, well, let's just say it wasn't what I expected. At first, she acted like she didn't really care. But then, as the conversation went on, she started poking fun at the job, saying things like, oh, so you're just going to be more stressed out now, huh? Or, well, good for you, but I bet it's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's just a promotion in a mediocre company. I try to brush it off because, honestly, I was just so excited about the promotion that I didn't want to let her negativity get to me. Things took a turn, though, when a week later, my company had a big meeting to announce all the internal promotions, and I was on the list. Anna, who had been aware of the meeting and was aware that I was likely going to be promoted, asked me the morning of if I could meet her for coffee. I agreed, thinking it would just be a casual catch-up. When I arrived at the cafe, Anna seemed more agitated than usual. She immediately started talking about how I should tone down my excitement about the promotion. She claimed that if I acted too confident about it, my colleagues might think I was too full of myself and that I might risk losing the respect of my peers. Then she suggested that I don't mention the promotion too much at work because it might make people resent me. Again, I tried to brush it off, but then she took it a step further. She told me, you should probably not even go to the announcement meeting. It might be embarrassing if the boss gets your promotion wrong or if it doesn't go as planned. Honestly, I think it's not even worth going. It's just a formality. You don't want to look like you're trying too hard. At this point, I was genuinely starting to feel annoyed. It felt like she was actively trying to undermine my excitement, and the more she talked, the more she sounded like she was trying to sabotage my happiness. I told her that I wasn't going to let her dictate how I should feel about my career and that I'd be attending the meeting no matter what. Anna didn't take kindly to this. She started arguing with me, telling me that I was being too sensitive and that she was just trying to help me avoid embarrassment. She even went so far as to suggest that I was only getting the promotion because of favoritism and that it wasn't a big deal in the grand scheme of things. That's when I lost it. I told her that she was being incredibly negative and that it wasn't helpful at all. I said I didn't need her unsolicited advice, especially when it felt like she was intentionally trying to bring me down. She snapped back, saying that I was too full of myself and that she was just trying to keep me grounded. She also made a comment about how she couldn't believe I was letting something as trivial as a promotion get me so upset. It got heated quickly, and we ended up leaving the cafe without resolving anything. Fast forward to the actual meeting, and my promotion went smoothly. It was announced, and I received congratulations from my colleagues and boss. Afterward, I shared the news with my family, but Anna didn't even acknowledge it. She just gave me a half-hearted congratulations before changing the subject to something unrelated. I've been trying to keep my distance from Anna ever since. I feel like her reaction to my promotion was not only hurtful, but also petty. I don't understand why she can't be happy for me, and it feels like she's doing everything she can to diminish my achievements. It's been bothering me more than I care to admit, but now I'm wondering if I overreacted during our confrontation. So, AITA for getting upset when my sister tried to sabotage my promotion? Some additional context. Our family dynamic has always been a bit strained, especially growing up. I was always the successful one, and she often felt overshadowed by me. Anna hasn't been very career-focused, and there have been times when I've had to bail her out of situations where she made poor life choices, financial problems, relationship issues, etc. This isn't the first time I've felt like she was undermining me, but it's the most blatant example. I don't want to be the kind of person who holds grudges, but it's hard to shake off the feeling that she's actively trying to make me feel bad about my success. I'm torn between wanting to have a better relationship with her and feeling like I need to stand my ground. Am I in the wrong for calling her out on her behavior, or should I have just let slide? AITA for getting mad at my friend for always being late and making me wait for hours? 28M, have a friend, let's call him Ben, 29M, who I've known for about 10 years. We've been through a lot together, supporting each other through family issues, breakups, and just life in general. But lately, he's been driving me crazy, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm in the wrong for being so annoyed with him. I'm hoping someone can give me some perspective on this. So here's the thing, Ben is always late. I'm not talking about the occasional, oops, I lost track of time lateness. No, Ben has this thing where he is perpetually 30 minutes to an hour late for everything. We'll make plans to meet up, and I'll show up on time, but it's guaranteed that I'll be waiting for him for at least half an hour, if not longer. This happens every single time we hang out. I've tried talking to him about it before. I've said things like, hey man, I'd really appreciate it if you could try to be on time. It's frustrating waiting for so long. He usually just shrugs it off and says something like, yeah, sorry, I'm just bad with time. And then nothing changes. I've tried to be understanding because I know people have different levels of punctuality, but it's gotten to the point where I feel disrespected every time. Last weekend, we made plans to hang out at a local bar. I had a busy week at work and was looking forward to a chill evening, just the two of us. We agreed on 7 p.m., and I made sure to leave work early so I wouldn't be late. I arrived at the bar exactly at 7 p.m. and texted him to let him know I was there. I thought maybe he'd actually be on time this time, but nope. I waited and waited. By 7:30, I shot him another text. Hey man, where are you? He replied with, running a little late, be there in 10. I thought, okay, fine, it's only 10 minutes. At 8 p.m., I texted again, what's going on, man? It's been an hour. He said, almost there, just stuck in traffic. So now I'm sitting at this bar alone, trying not to look like a loner, and waiting another 20 minutes. By 8:30, he finally shows up, and I'm beyond frustrated at this point. I told him straight up, dude, this is ridiculous. Why do you always do this? He just laughed it off and said, chill, I'm here now, let's just have a drink. But I couldn't drop it. I went on a bit of a rant. I told him how every time we make plans, I end up waiting forever, and it started to feel like he doesn't care about my time. He got defensive, and we ended up having a pretty heated argument at the bar. I told him that I don't want to keep making plans with him if this is how it's going to be. He seemed genuinely hurt by this, but I was honestly tired of being let down every single time. After that night, I've been questioning if I overreacted. We've been friends for a long time, and I know he's a good guy, but I feel like I'm being taken for granted here. I didn't want to completely cut him off or ruin our friendship, but I feel like this is becoming a pattern that I can't ignore anymore. I've always been someone who values punctuality and respect for other people's time, and I don't think I'm asking for too much by expecting him to be on time every once in a while. But at the same time, I don't want to come off as controlling or like I'm making a big deal out of nothing. I haven't heard from Ben since that night. He didn't reach out to apologize or anything, which kind of stings. Part of me feels like maybe I should have been more understanding, but another part of me feels like he needs to realize that this behavior is not okay. I'm curious to hear if anyone else has been in a similar situation. AITA for getting mad at my friend for being late all the time and calling him out on it? Or am I blowing this out of proportion and should have just let it slide? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's birthday party because she keeps asking me to change my diet for it. So this all started about 2 months ago when my best friend, Rachel, invited me to her birthday party. Rachel and I have been friends for over a decade. We've been through thick and thin together, from high school dramas to job struggles to relationship issues. I always felt like we understood each other, which is why this situation has really thrown me off. Rachel has always been a bit health conscious. She's into clean eating, veganism, and all that stuff, and while I don't follow her dietary choices, I've never had an issue with it. She knows I'm more of a I'll eat whatever I want kind of person, and it's never been a problem before. We've always respected each other's choices in the past. This year, Rachel decided to go all out for her birthday. She wanted to have a small gathering of close friends at her place, and she started planning everything around a theme. Healthy eating, obviously. She told me that she wanted to make sure all the food at the party was vegan, organic, gluten-free, and free of refined sugars. I thought that was fine. After all, it was her party, so she could do whatever she wanted with the food. No big deal. But then, the requests started coming in. She messaged me about a week later and said she wanted me to adjust my diet leading up to the party. She said, "It's really important to me that everyone be on the same page food-wise, and I would love if you could cut out dairy, gluten, and refined sugar for at least a few weeks before the party. That way, you'll be in the right mindset for the birthday celebration and be able to fully enjoy everything without feeling like you're outside of the vibe." At first, I was like, okay, that's a bit much, but it's her birthday, I can try it. So, I told her I would try to eat a little healthier in the weeks leading up to the party. I figured I could manage for a few weeks and see what happened. However, this wasn't just a casual request. It was like she was giving me a full-on diet plan. Over the next couple of weeks, she kept sending me recipes and meal ideas, constantly reminding me about the rules for a party. She even started suggesting certain brands of plant-based products I should be using, like specific dairy-free cheeses, gluten-free pasta, and sugar substitutes. I don't have anything against those things, but it felt a little invasive. I was getting overwhelmed, but I didn't want to upset her, so I kept going along with it. Then about a week before the party, she dropped another bombshell. She told me that there would be a zero-tolerance policy at the party for anyone eating anything that didn't fit within her healthy eating plan. She said, "If you're bringing anything with sugar or dairy, please don't bring it. It's really important to me that everyone respects the theme and the effort I'm putting into this." At this point, I was feeling a bit trapped. I don't usually have a problem with healthy eating, but I also don't like being forced into it. I didn't feel like I was being allowed to enjoy the party for what it was, my best friend's birthday. But instead, it felt more like I was being asked to conform to a very specific set of dietary rules. I tried to have a conversation with her about it. I told her that while I supported her choices, I didn't feel comfortable with all the restrictions, especially the part where she was asking me to change my diet for the next few weeks just to attend her party. I explained that I wasn't asking for her to change anything for me, but I didn't want to feel like I was being forced into a diet that wasn't mine. Rachel didn't take it well. She said I was being selfish and not respecting her wishes. She told me that if I couldn't even make the effort to support her on her birthday, then maybe I didn't care about her as much as I claimed to. She also mentioned how it was hurtful that I wasn't willing to try to change for her, especially since she had always supported me in all my choices. That's when I started feeling really conflicted. I don't think I'm in the wrong for wanting to be able to eat what I like, but I also didn't want to disappoint my best friend. She's had some struggles in the past, and I know this party meant a lot to her. But at the same time, I don't think it's fair to demand that people change their lifestyles just to attend your event, especially when it's a situation like this where the dietary changes are so specific and extensive. So, I made the decision not to attend the party. I sent her a message explaining that I didn't feel comfortable with the dietary restrictions, and I didn't think I could fully enjoy the party if I had to constantly worry about what I was eating. I told her I'd love to hang out with her another time and celebrate, but I just couldn't go to the party under those conditions. Rachel hasn't spoken to me since. She's left me on read multiple times, and when I tried reaching out to apologize, I genuinely didn't want to upset her. She ignored me. I feel like I've lost my best friend over something that seems kind of trivial, but at the same time, I also feel like I made the right choice. I can't change my entire lifestyle for a party, especially when it was never my idea to begin with. So, AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's birthday party because of the diet restrictions. AITA for refusing to help my brother with his financial troubles after he mocked my career choice. I, 29M, have a younger brother, Ben, 26M. We've never been especially close, but I always thought we'd have each other's backs. Ben is the more outgoing of the two of us, always cracking jokes, always the life of the party. Me? I'm more reserved, a bit introverted, but I'm content with my life. I work as a freelance graphic designer. It's not a glamorous job, and it doesn't pay a ton, but I make enough to live comfortably, and I love what I do. Ben has always had a bit of a get-rich-quick mentality. He's tried his hand at a number of different ventures, most of which have flopped. He's always bouncing from one idea to the next, convinced that the next big thing is just around the corner. Meanwhile, I've been steady, building my career slowly and steadily. A few months ago, Ben hit me up out of the blue, asking for a loan. He said he was in a bit of a financial bind and needed $5,000 to get him through a rough patch. He promised he'd pay me back in a few months once things settled. Now, I'm not in the best financial shape myself, but I'm comfortable enough to help someone in need. However, I wanted to make sure that Ben was serious about fixing his financial situation and not just looking for a quick handout. Before I gave him any money, I asked him what had happened. Ben explained that he had invested in a surefire business venture. He didn't give me many details, just said that he put in a large sum of money into some online project that promised fast returns. But the project ended up being a scam, and he lost almost everything. On top of that, he had taken out a loan from a payday lender to cover some personal expenses, which he was struggling to repay. I told Ben that I couldn't just throw money at his problems without understanding the situation fully. I explained that I was worried about his decision-making and that he needed to take a hard look at his finances and start budgeting better. I also told him I was concerned that he was relying too heavily on external sources of income, like risky investments, instead of building something stable. Ben wasn't happy with my response. He became defensive and started mocking my career. He said something along the lines of, "You're just a freelancer, man. How can you talk to me about finances when you're barely scraping by yourself? You don't even have a real job. You just make some art online. It's not like you're doing anything important." I was taken aback by his comments. I'd never mocked him for his failed business ventures. I had always tried to be supportive, even if I didn't always agree with his decisions. But his words hit a nerve. I worked really hard to get to where I am. My job may not be a traditional office role, but it pays the bills, and it gives me the freedom to do something I'm passionate about. I don't need validation from him, but hearing that from him, of all people, stung. After that, I told Ben I wasn't going to give him the money. I explained that if he wanted to fix his financial situation, he needed to take responsibility for his choices and not expect a handout every time things went wrong. I told him that I'd be happy to help him with advice or guidance, but not with money. Ben was furious. He accused me of being selfish, of acting like I was better than him because I had a stable job. He even said that I wasn't really his brother if I couldn't support him when he needed it most. To be honest, it felt like an ultimatum. If I didn't help him, I wasn't a good brother. I tried to stay calm, but it was hard. I explained that I wasn't refusing to help him because I didn't care. I just didn't think giving him money was the solution. I told him that real support would mean holding him accountable and encouraging him to make better choices, not just fixing his immediate problems and letting him continue making the same mistakes. Now, a few months have passed, and things have gotten even more strained between us. Ben hasn't spoken to me much, and when he does, it's usually cold or hostile. Our parents have called me a few times, tried to convince me to make up with him and give him the money, but I've stuck to my decision. They've said that family is everything and that I should just help him out this one time. But I feel like if I give him the money now, I'm enabling his poor financial habits. I've also heard through mutual friends that Ben has been bad-mouthing me, saying that I'm an arrogant jerk who doesn't care about family. Some of our friends are starting to take his side, telling me I should have helped him because it's what family does. It's made me question if I'm being too rigid or if I'm doing the right thing. I've tried to reach out to Ben a few times to talk things through, but he's always too angry or busy. Part of me wants to fix things, but another part of me feels like I've already made my stance clear. I can't keep enabling his poor decisions, and I need to put my own financial stability first. So, AITA for refusing to help my brother financially after he mocked my career choice and put me in a position where I felt like I was enabling his poor habits? Should I have just given him the money and kept the peace? Or did I do the right thing by standing my ground? AITA for not telling my family I was quitting my job until the last minute. I, 27M, have been working at a corporate job for the past 5 years. It's not the most exciting work, but it pays well and I've learned a lot. Lately, though, I've been getting more and more frustrated with the company. The management is terrible, the work-life balance is non-existent, and the company culture feels like a toxic treadmill. I've been talking about leaving for months, but I never made any concrete moves because I was scared. Not of quitting, but of disappointing my family. My family is really traditional, especially when it comes to job security. They always push me to stick it out in a stable job, and my parents always remind me that in their generation, people would stay in the same job for decades. They don't understand the idea of pivoting careers or doing something that makes you happy, especially when it involves taking a risk. This pressure to be stable has always been there, and honestly, it's been weighing on me. Fast forward to 2 months ago, I got an offer from a small startup. It's in a field I've always wanted to work in, and the people seem passionate and creative. The salary isn't as high as what I make now, but it's enough to live on. Most importantly, it would be a massive improvement in my mental health and career satisfaction. It felt like the perfect time to make a change, and I was beyond excited. But I couldn't bring myself to tell my family. I knew what the reaction would be. They'd freak out. They'd tell me I was being irresponsible. They'd accuse me of throwing away my future. So I kept it to myself and waited until everything was signed and finalized before I told them. I told myself it was better to just get everything settled first, rather than deal with their disapproval during the process. The day before I was supposed to start the new job, I told my parents. They were visiting for the weekend, and I figured it was as good a time as any. I sat them down and explained that I was leaving my corporate job for something more aligned with my passions. I thought it was going to be a good conversation. I thought they would eventually come around when they realized how much happier I was going to be. That didn't happen. Instead, my mom immediately started crying. My dad started lecturing me about how I was throwing away my future and how unstable the startup world is. They both accused me of not thinking things through, and they insisted that I was making a huge mistake. My mom kept saying, "Why couldn't you just stay in your job for a few more years? You're not even giving it a chance." It felt like they were taking everything I said as an attack on them. They were both angry that I had made this decision without consulting them, and they couldn't understand why I'd wait until the last minute to tell them. My dad said I should have told them months ago when I first started thinking about leaving. You don't just drop a bomb like this on your family the day before you're supposed to start a new job. It was hard for me to keep my cool during all of this. I felt like they weren't even listening to what I was saying. It was like they were more upset about the timing and the fact that I didn't follow the right process than the actual decision itself. But it's not like I could undo everything I'd already planned. I had already quit my old job, and the new job was ready for me to start the next day. I tried to explain to them that this was what I needed to do for my happiness and mental health. I explained how miserable I had been at my old job and how this opportunity was a dream come true. But they just kept repeating the same thing. This is a mistake. You'll regret it. The situation only escalated when my brother, 29, came into the conversation. He's always been the golden child of the family. He went to top-tier law school and has a very high-paying job at a prestigious firm. He's always been the one to make my parents proud. So, naturally, he took my parents' side. He started telling me that I was being foolish and that I should stop acting impulsively. It felt like they were ganging up on me, and it made me feel even worse. I ended up walking out of the room because I couldn't take it anymore. I knew that if I stayed, I'd probably start yelling, and I didn't want to do that. I spent the rest of the evening feeling defeated and frustrated. They didn't understand, and it seemed like no matter how many times I explained myself, they just wouldn't listen. The next day, I started my new job, and it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. The team was welcoming, and I was excited about the work I was doing. But every time I thought about what had happened with my family, I felt guilty. It was hard to shake the feeling that I had hurt them by not consulting them first, even though I knew I had made the right choice for myself. Now, it's been a couple of weeks, and things are still tense. My mom has barely spoken to me, and my dad keeps sending me messages telling me to be careful and don't throw away your future. My brother hasn't said much either, except to occasionally remind me how risky my decision was. It feels like no one is happy for me, and I'm starting to wonder if I made a mistake by not telling them sooner. AITA for not telling my family I was quitting my job until the last minute. I feel like I did the right thing for me, but now I'm questioning whether I should have considered their feelings more. AITA for refusing to help my sister pay for her wedding after she stole my inheritance. So, I, 28M, have a sister, Sarah, 30F. We grew up in a fairly typical household, not rich but comfortable. My parents were both teachers, and while we never had lavish things, we were always provided for. That being said, my family was hit pretty hard when my father passed away about 3 years ago. My mother, understandably, was devastated, and that was when things started to change within our family dynamic. My father had always been the one to manage the finances in the family, and after his death, my mother was struggling to navigate everything. A few months after he passed, my father's will was read. It was a straightforward will. It was made clear that everything would be divided equally between Sarah and me. The biggest part of the inheritance was a property my father owned, a small cottage on a lake that had been in our family for generations. It wasn't worth millions, but it had significant sentimental value. I was incredibly close to my dad, and I had always loved that cottage. We spent a lot of our childhood summers there, and the thought of owning it one day was something I cherished. The will stated that the property was to be sold, and the proceeds were to be split equally. However, when it came time to finalize the sale and distribution of the inheritance, something strange happened. My mother, who had been struggling with grief and confusion, signed off on everything with Sarah and me without asking any questions. Sarah, who had always been a little more assertive than I was, took control of the situation. She told me that the property was sold and that everything had been taken care of. I trusted her, figuring she had it all under control. I didn't think much of it at the time, as I was grieving my father's death and just wanted to move on. Months passed, and I started to hear murmurs within the family that things didn't add up. There were rumors that Sarah had received more money than she let on, and I began to feel uneasy. Eventually, I did some digging. I got my hands on some documents from the sale of the cottage, and to my shock, I discovered that Sarah had not only sold the cottage, but had kept the full proceeds for herself. She had told me the sale went smoothly, but it was clear she had pocketed everything. She had even forged my signature on some documents to make sure it looked like I was okay with it. I confronted her immediately, and she admitted what she had done. She said she was just taking care of things, and that I should be grateful for the money I had already received. According to her, I was overreacting and being greedy for wanting my share of the inheritance. I felt completely betrayed. Not only had she stolen from me, but she also tried to manipulate me into thinking it was somehow for the best. The money she kept for herself went toward her lavish wedding, which, by the way, was incredibly extravagant. She spent nearly all of the inheritance on her dream wedding, which included a destination ceremony, designer dresses, and everything you can imagine. I was furious. I felt like I had been taken advantage of during one of the most difficult times of my life. I wanted nothing to do with her or her wedding, but my mother, who had no idea about what Sarah had done, was excited about the wedding and pressured me to attend. She said I should just let it go and be there for Sarah, especially considering the amount of money my sister had spent. I refused to let it slide. I told Sarah that I wanted my share of the inheritance and that I wasn't going to let her get away with what she had done. She responded by saying that I was being petty and resentful, that it was just money, and that family was more important than some inheritance. I felt like I had no choice but to hold my ground. I even went so far as to contact a lawyer to see if there was anything I could do about the situation, but since it was all based on a forged signature and there wasn't much I could do legally, I dropped the issue, but the emotional damage was already done. Now here's where I feel guilty. Sarah's wedding is coming up, and the whole family is obviously excited, but I just can't bring myself to forgive her. I know people will say that it's just money and I should let it go, but that money wasn't just a financial asset. It was a part of my father's legacy. It was a piece of something I cherished, and she took it from me. I just can't pretend everything is okay. I've made it clear to my family that I won't be attending the wedding. My mother is upset with me, and so are a few extended family members, calling me petty and saying I'm ruining the family by refusing to support Sarah on her big day. But I honestly feel like I can't get past the betrayal. Sarah hasn't even apologized. She just keeps insisting that she did what was best for everyone and that I should just move on. I'm really torn. On one hand, I feel like I have every right to be angry and stand my ground. On the other hand, I don't want to be the one to tear the family apart, especially when my mom is already grieving my dad's death. But I also feel like Sarah hasn't shown any remorse, and I'm not sure how to handle that. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she stole my inheritance? Am I being too hard on her? Or do I have a right to be upset? AITA for refusing to help my sister after she treated me horribly my whole life? I, 28M, have a sister, Sarah, 30F, who has always been the golden child in our family. From the moment we were kids, she could do no wrong. Our parents always treated her like she was the more important child, and I ended up playing the role of the responsible one. While Sarah was off getting praise for everything, I was stuck doing chores, running errands, and generally trying to keep the peace. Now, I don't want to paint myself as some perfect angel. I definitely had my flaws growing up, but I never expected my parents to treat me the way they did. They made excuses for Sarah's bad behavior, and I was often held to higher standards. I was the one who got grounded if I didn't do something perfectly, and I was the one who had to sacrifice my own plans to accommodate family stuff. On the other hand, Sarah could throw tantrums, act selfishly, and still get whatever she wanted. It was frustrating, but I always kept my head down and tried to stay out of the drama. As we got older, things didn't improve. In fact, they got worse. Sarah started using her favored status to manipulate situations to her advantage. She'd get what she wanted, and if she didn't, she would turn on the waterworks and make everyone feel guilty for her. Meanwhile, I was expected to just put up with it and help her out when needed, even though she rarely returned the favor. I finally moved out when I was 22, got a decent job, and started to build my life. The contrast between my life and Sarah's could not have been more stark. She had dropped out of college after 1 year, moved back in with our parents, and was constantly in and out of jobs. Somehow, despite all her missteps, our parents continued to bail her out. They'd cover her rent, pay off her credit cards, and even buy her new cars. Meanwhile, I was expected to make my own way in the world with no help from them. A few years ago, I met my now fiancée, Lily, 26F, and we started planning our future together. Lily is from a completely different family dynamic. Her parents are loving, supportive, and kind. She was shocked when she first met my family, especially when she saw how my parents treated Sarah. But she didn't want to interfere too much with my relationship with them, so she let me handle it. Then came the kicker. Sarah suddenly needed a huge favor. She'd been fired from her latest job, again, and this time she was in financial trouble. She called me one night, crying on the phone, saying she didn't know how she was going to pay her rent. Our parents weren't helping her this time because they had finally set some boundaries for the first time in years, and she was desperate. I tried to be sympathetic, but honestly, after everything that had happened over the years, I had reached my breaking point. I told her that I couldn't help her this time. I didn't have the money to spare, and frankly, I was tired of being the safety net for someone who never learned to stand on their own 2 feet. Sarah got incredibly upset, accusing me of being selfish and never caring about her. She called me heartless and said that I was always the one who acted like I was better than her. To be clear, I didn't tell her this to be mean. I had just reached a place where I couldn't keep enabling her. She had no plan to get back on her feet, and it felt like I was just feeding into a never-ending cycle. I told her that if she was serious about changing her situation, she needed to take responsibility and figure it out herself. The next day, our parents called me, furious. They said I was being cruel and that family is supposed to support each other no matter what. They reminded me of all the times Sarah had looked out for me when we were kids, which I honestly don't remember. They even brought up my fiancée, Lily, claiming that she was somehow influencing me to turn my back on my sister. My mom told me that I should be ashamed of myself and that I was hurting the family by not helping Sarah. They said I should at least lend her the money so she could pay her rent for the month, and they'd help her get back on track. I told them that I couldn't afford to do that, and that I wasn't willing to just hand her money with no plan in place. Now, Sarah has cut me out of her life completely. She's posted several passive-aggressive statuses on social media, calling me a disappointment and a selfish prick. She's even tried to turn some of our extended family against me by claiming that I abandoned her when she needed me the most. She's been sending messages to our mutual friends, saying that I'm too good for her and that I'm letting her sink. I'm feeling guilty, but also incredibly frustrated. I've spent my whole life being the one who picks up the pieces for her, only for her to keep making the same mistakes and expecting me to fix everything. My fiancé supports my decision, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm the one in the wrong. It feels like no matter what I do, I'm never going to win with my family. They've always been so focused on Sarah that they can't see that I'm just tired of being treated like the reliable one without ever being given the same level of care or understanding. I'm really stuck here. I feel like I've done the right thing, but at the same time, I feel guilty for not helping my sister when she's in a tough spot. AITA for refusing to help her out when she's asked, even though I've been the one to help her countless times before. Edit. For clarification, Sarah has a history of poor decision-making. It's not just one mistake. She's been bailed out repeatedly. Every time she faces a setback, she expects others to clean up after her without ever learning from the experience. She has no interest in working on herself or getting stable. I've been more than understanding in the past, but I've reached a breaking point. Also, I do recognize that this is a tough situation, but I don't think I'm being unreasonable. I've been the one shouldering the burden for so long, and it's taking a toll on me. AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding after she told me I should lose weight for it. So, this is a bit of a long story, but I'll try to keep it brief. I, 28F, have been friends with Kayla, 29F, for over 10 years. We've been through everything together: breakups, family drama, job struggles, everything. She's honestly one of the people I trust most in this world. But recently, things between us have taken a weird turn, and now I'm feeling really conflicted. Kayla got engaged to her fiancé, Sam, 30M, about 6 months ago, and it was such a big deal. We were all so happy for them, and naturally, she started planning the wedding immediately. Kayla has always been a perfectionist, and her vision for the wedding was very specific. I'm not really into big events like weddings, but I always support her because she's been my ride or die for so long. Now, I'll admit that I've always struggled with my weight. I've tried different diets, I've been to therapy, and I've had a really tough time losing weight for years. I've been to the gym on and off, but it's been a constant battle. Some months are better than others, but my weight has fluctuated. It's not something I'm proud of, but it's something I've been working on in my own time. The thing is, Kayla has always been super supportive of me when I've needed her. Or at least I thought she was. A few weeks ago, Kayla asked me to meet her for lunch. When I arrived, she was already sitting down and seemed a bit nervous, which was unusual for her. We got through small talk, and then she dropped the bombshell. She said, "I really want you to be a bridesmaid at my wedding, but I need to talk to you about something first." Naturally, I assumed she was going to talk about dresses or the wedding theme. But instead, she said, "I'm really hoping you'll lose some weight before the wedding. I'm just being honest. It would mean a lot to me if you could lose at least 15 pounds before the big day." I was stunned, completely blindsided. I asked her why she wanted me to lose weight specifically for the wedding, and she said, "It's just that I have a vision for the day, and I want everything to be perfect. And I want us all to look our best in the photos. I've been working hard on my body too, and I want all my bridesmaids to look their best as well." At this point, I didn't really know what to say. I just sat there, feeling like the world was closing in around me. I tried to explain to her that weight loss is a really difficult journey for me, and that I've been working on it at my own pace. I told her that while I understood her desire for everything to be perfect, I didn't feel comfortable with the pressure she was putting on me. But Kayla seemed insistent, saying, "It's just for a few months. You can do it if you really try." I left the lunch feeling completely deflated. I had known Kayla for so long, and I'd always been there for her, supporting her through all her crazy ideas, big or small. But this This felt like a betrayal. The more I thought about it, the more upset I became. It wasn't just the fact that she wanted me to lose weight. It was the way she said it, the way she implied that if I didn't, I wouldn't be good enough for her wedding. I talked to a few other friends about it, and some are on my side, saying that it was wrong of her to make me feel this way. Others, however, said I was overreacting, that I should just try to lose the weight, and that Kayla was just trying to make everything perfect for her special day. They said I should be a good friend and do this for her, because it's only a few months and it'll be worth it. I went back and forth on this for a couple of weeks. I thought about trying to lose the weight, but every time I thought about Kayla's words, it just made me feel like I wasn't good enough as I am. It wasn't about losing weight for my health anymore. It was about trying to fit into a version of myself that Kayla wanted, and I wasn't sure I could do that. Finally, I made a decision. I texted Kayla and told her that I couldn't attend the wedding or be a bridesmaid. I told her I loved her and I wanted nothing but the best for her, but I felt like I couldn't support her in this way. I explained that the pressure to lose weight was something I couldn't handle, and it felt like she wasn't accepting me for who I am. I told her I was hurt by the way she had asked me to change for her wedding, and that it didn't feel like a healthy or supportive request. Kayla's response was immediate. She called me crying, saying I was being dramatic and that I was being selfish. She told me that she was only trying to make her wedding perfect and that I was overreacting by taking it personally. She said that I was ruining our friendship by not being there for her in the way she needed me. I've tried to explain myself, but she's been distant ever since. She's told mutual friends that I'm making everything about me and that I'm throwing a tantrum over something that doesn't matter. Some of our friends are on her side, others are on mine, and it's created this weird rift in our friend group. Now, I feel like I've lost a friend, and I'm not even sure if it's worth trying to fix this. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding after she told me I should lose weight for it. I just don't know if I'm being too sensitive or if she crossed a line. AITA for telling my sister she ruined my birthday by inviting her ex and causing drama. I, 29M, have a sister, Claire, 27F, who has always been a bit of a drama queen. I love her, but she's one of those people who tends to stir things up wherever she goes, often without thinking about the consequences. We've had our fair share of arguments growing up, but overall, our relationship is good. We talk regularly, and we both get along well with our parents. That said, when it comes to big events in my life, I try to keep things simple and drama-free. This year, I decided to celebrate my birthday a little differently. I usually just go for dinner with a few close friends and family, but I wanted to do something a bit bigger, something memorable. So, I decided to rent a small venue and host a casual party with food, drinks, and a few fun activities. It was going to be a low-key event, but I was really looking forward to it. I made sure to invite people who I knew would add to the vibe, friends who get along well with each other, and family members who don't bring unnecessary tension. A few weeks before the party, I sent out invitations and got a decent response. Everyone was excited, and it was shaping up to be a good time. A few days before the event, Claire called me to confirm that she'd be coming. I asked her if she was bringing anyone, and she mentioned that she might bring her boyfriend, Mike. I didn't have an issue with that. Mike and I get along well, and I knew he would be a positive addition to the party. But then she added something that immediately raised a red flag. She also said her ex, Tom, was planning on showing up. Now, Tom and Claire had dated for almost 2 years before they broke up last year. It was a pretty messy breakup, lots of arguments, misunderstandings, and hurt feelings. While I don't dislike Tom, I never thought he was a good match for Claire, and I certainly didn't think he'd be the type of person to hang out at my birthday party, especially since he was no longer in the picture. To be honest, I didn't want him there. I had no issue with him as a person, but I didn't think it was appropriate for him to be around at a family event after the breakup, especially since Claire had made it clear that they were no longer on good terms. I told Claire that I wasn't comfortable with Tom coming. I tried to be polite but firm, explaining that it was my special day and I didn't want any awkwardness or unnecessary tension. I wasn't trying to be controlling, I just wanted to keep things smooth. I also pointed out that inviting him would likely make some people uncomfortable, and it could turn my birthday into a situation where all the attention was on them instead of celebrating me. Claire didn't take my request well at all. She got upset, saying that I was overreacting and being unreasonable. She claimed that she and Tom are on good terms now and that it would be fine. But I wasn't buying it. I've seen how awkward things can get when exes are around, and I wasn't going to let that ruin my birthday. She said, "Fine, I won't bring him, but you're being really dramatic about this. It's not like we're going to cause any problems." I thought that was the end of it, but a few days before the party, Claire told me she had changed her mind and that Tom would be coming anyway. She said she had already told him about the party and that he had RSVP'd, so it was too late to uninvite him. At this point, I was really frustrated. I couldn't believe she was ignoring my wishes so blatantly. I tried to talk to her again, explaining how uncomfortable I was with the whole situation, but she just kept brushing me off. Finally, I told her that if Tom was coming, I didn't want her at my party either. I felt like she was prioritizing her ex over my feelings, and I didn't think that was fair. That's when Claire went off on me. She told me I was being selfish and that I was ruining our relationship over something so trivial. She accused me of not caring about her happiness and making everything about myself. I told her that wasn't the case at all and that I just didn't want my birthday to be a drama-filled mess. She hung up on me, and we didn't speak for a few days. In the end, Claire showed up at the party with Tom anyway. I won't lie, it was awkward as hell. Tom barely interacted with anyone, and Claire spent most of the night hovering around him. It felt like the entire vibe of the party shifted. People who didn't know Tom were uncomfortable, and the friends I invited were side-eyeing the situation. I couldn't focus on having a good time because I was constantly worried about the tension in the air. At one point, Tom got into an argument with one of my friends over something trivial, and it just escalated into a weird, uncomfortable situation that I had to step in and diffuse. By the end of the night, I was honestly upset. I spent so much energy trying to make sure my birthday was special, and instead, it turned into a mess of awkwardness and drama. I feel like Claire totally disregarded my feelings and put me in a position where I had to play referee between her and her ex. I don't think I was wrong to ask her not to bring him, but now I'm second-guessing whether I should have just let it go. Was I being too controlling by insisting he not come? Am I wrong for feeling like Claire ruined my birthday? Since then, Claire hasn't really apologized. She texted me the next day saying, "I'm sorry if you didn't enjoy the party. I thought it was fine, and I just wanted everyone to get along." But it didn't feel like a real apology. It felt like she was blaming me for not enjoying the situation she created. I don't know if I overreacted or if I was justified in how I handled things, but I've been wondering if I was too harsh on her. AITA for asking her not to bring her ex? AITA for confronting my sister about always using my accomplishments to make herself look better? So a little background. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Sarah, 26F, who has always been pretty competitive with me. Growing up, it was always Sarah's better at this or Sarah did this faster. And I was okay with it, mostly because I didn't care about competing. I was more focused on doing my own thing. But I've noticed over the years that Sarah's way of dealing with competition has turned into something more subtle and manipulative. Now that we're adults, it's become more apparent. We don't live in the same city anymore, but we still keep in touch and try to get together every couple of months for family events or visits. A couple of years ago, I started my own business. It's been going well, and I've been really proud of how hard I've worked to get off the ground. It's not some big, flashy business, but it supports me, and I'm happy with it. That's when Sarah started showing some signs of jealousy, or at least that's how it felt to me. It started with small things like her making little comments like, "Oh, I guess it's easy for you to be successful since you had everything handed to you." This is not true, by the way. She was never outright rude, but it was clear that she wasn't happy with the idea that I was doing well. But I figure I was imagining things, so I just let it slide. Things got worse when I started getting a bit of recognition for the work I've done. A few of my clients wrote testimonials about my business, and I was invited to speak at a small local event about entrepreneurship. It wasn't anything huge, but I felt pretty good about it. I shared the news with my family, and my mom was so excited for me. She asked me to send her the details so she could share it with our relatives. The next family gathering, Sarah had to chime in. She made a point of saying, "Oh, that's nice. I remember when I got invited to speak at that same event last year." I didn't really think it was a big deal. I didn't even tell anyone about it because it wasn't as big of an honor as people make it sound. I was just there to fill in. I was a little taken aback because I didn't know she had been invited to speak at the event. I didn't say anything at the time, but I definitely felt uncomfortable. Why was she trying to downplay what I had done and make it seem like it wasn't a big deal? I've always been supportive of her accomplishments, and I've never tried to diminish them. The situation continued to escalate over the next few months. Anytime I shared something I was proud of, whether it was getting a new client, reaching a milestone in my business, or even personal stuff like going on a trip I had been saving for, Sarah would either one-up me or act like it wasn't a big deal. She even started doing things like mentioning how she was working on something really exciting but wouldn't elaborate, making me feel like I was doing something less impressive. Finally, it reached a tipping point a few weeks ago. My family was visiting, and we were all having dinner together. I mentioned that I had just been offered a large contract with a client I had been trying to land for months. I was genuinely excited about it, and I thought it was a big deal. Instead of congratulating me, Sarah immediately responded, "Oh, I had a similar offer last year, but I turned it down because I didn't think it was worth my time." Honestly, it felt a little too easy, so I moved on. It was the last straw. I couldn't hold it in anymore, so I bluntly said, "Why do you always do that? Why do you have to make everything I accomplish seem less impressive? Every single time I share something I'm proud of, you have to either downplay it or act like you've done something better." She was shocked, and there was an awkward silence at the table. My parents were both there, and I think they could tell I was upset, but they didn't intervene. Sarah, looking kind of defensive, said, "I'm not doing that. I'm just saying I don't think you need to brag about every little thing." I replied, "It's not bragging. I'm just sharing my accomplishments because I'm happy about them, and it feels like you always have to make it about you or put me down. I never do that to you." At that point, my mom tried to mediate, saying, "Let's all calm down. Sarah doesn't mean any harm." But I wasn't having it. I told Sarah I was tired of feeling like she was always trying to outshine me, even in the most subtle ways. I ended the conversation by saying, "I'm done pretending this doesn't bother me. You can keep making everything about you, but I'm not going to sit here and let you diminish everything I'm doing just to make yourself feel better." Sarah was visibly upset, and the rest of the evening was awkward. Since then, she's been cold towards me, barely texting or calling. My mom reached out, saying I should apologize for making Sarah feel bad and that I didn't have to be so harsh. But I don't think I was harsh. I think I finally stood up for myself after years of feeling like I wasn't allowed to be proud of my own successes without her throwing them in my face. So, AITA for confronting my sister like that. I know family dynamics can be tricky, but it really feels like she's been undermining me for a long time, and I've had enough. I just don't know if I was out of line with how I handled it. Let me know what you think. AITA for refusing to let my brother move in with me after he sold his house. I, 29F, have a younger brother, 25M, who has always been a bit of a free spirit. Growing up, he was always the more rebellious one while I was the responsible sibling. After high school, I went on to university and got a decent job right after graduation. I've been fairly stable in my life, which is something I take pride in. My brother, on the other hand, has had a rough time. He dropped out of college after a year, bounced from one job to another, and has had a series of short-term relationships. I don't want to say he's a screw-up, but things haven't exactly been smooth sailing for him. A few months ago, my brother sold his house. He had been living in it for a couple of years, but it was a pretty small, old place. It wasn't great, but it was his. He decided to sell it because he wanted to move to a new city, get a fresh start, and find something more exciting. The problem is, he didn't have a plan for what would happen afterward. I'm not sure what he expected, but he didn't save up enough for rent in a new city, and he didn't line up a new job either. One evening, he called me and told me he sold his house, but he hadn't found a new place to live yet. He asked if he could stay with me for a while. I was hesitant because I live in a small apartment, and while I love my brother, I wasn't sure how well we'd get along living under the same roof again. Our relationship has always been a bit strained. When we were younger, we fought a lot, and we never really became close as adults. But he's my brother, and I didn't want to leave him high and dry. At first, I said I'd help him look for a place nearby, and suggested he stay in a hotel until he found something more permanent. He got upset and insisted that I should let him crash at my place for a while. He said it would only be for a few weeks, max. I told him that I didn't think that was a good idea. I live alone, and I've built a routine that I'm comfortable with. My apartment is small, and adding another person to the mix, especially someone with no clear plan, didn't sound like a good idea. He started getting upset, saying that I was being selfish and that he didn't have anywhere else to go. He brought up how he helped me when I had a tough time a couple of years ago. He was referring to a situation when I went through a breakup and had to move back into my parents' house temporarily. He helped me out with some things during that time, but I never asked him to, and it didn't feel like the same situation at all. That was a few months, not an indefinite stay. The argument went back and forth, and he started to guilt trip me. He told me I was abandoning him, and that if I really cared about family, I would help him out. He said he was just trying to better his life and that he needed some support to get back on track. I explained that I wasn't refusing to help him get a place, but I just couldn't have him living with me. Eventually, he started reaching out to our parents for help. I don't think he actually expected them to do anything, but I was surprised when they called me to ask if I was really going to let him stay in a hotel or on the street. My parents are very family above all people, and they have this view that family should always take care of each other, no matter what. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I also think there need to be boundaries. I reiterated my stance to my parents, explaining that I didn't have room, and I wasn't comfortable with him moving in, especially since he had no plan and wasn't taking responsibility for his own situation. They seemed disappointed, and my dad said something along the lines of, "You're his sister, you should help him when he's down." Now, my brother has completely cut me off. He stopped answering my calls, and he hasn't spoken to me in over a month. He's been posting on social media about how family is supposed to be there for each other and how he can't believe I would turn my back on him. I feel guilty, but I also don't think I did anything wrong. I have a life to live too, and I'm not obligated to sacrifice my living situation just to help him avoid the consequences of his own poor decisions. I've thought a lot about it, and I know I could have handled things better. Maybe I should have been more empathetic or tried harder to find compromise. But the bottom line is that I feel like he's being irresponsible, and I don't want to enable that behavior. He's an adult, and he needs to take responsibility for his own choices. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother move in with me after he sold his house and didn't have a backup plan. I understand he's going through a tough time, but at what point do I stop being the one to bail him out? AITA for kicking my best friend out after she lied about my boyfriend. So, this has been a really stressful situation, and I'm honestly still trying to figure out if I was in the wrong here. I, 28F, have a best friend, Sarah, 27F, who I've known for over 10 years. We've always been super close and have been through a lot together, good and bad. She's been my confidant, the person I go to when I need advice or a shoulder to cry on. But recently, things took a turn, and now I'm questioning whether I was too harsh in my reaction. A little background. I've been dating my boyfriend, Tom, 30M, for almost 2 years. We met through mutual friends, and we really hit it off. He's kind, supportive, and has a good sense of humor. He and Sarah get along fine, although they're not super close, which I've always been fine with. Sarah has had a lot of failed relationships, so she's often skeptical when it comes to other people's relationships. She tends to get a little defensive when she feels like someone might be too perfect or when she thinks someone is acting inauthentic. I've always brushed it off because she's my best friend, and I understand her hang-ups. A couple of months ago, I started noticing some weird behavior from Sarah. She'd make snide remarks about Tom, like how he was too perfect or too smooth, almost implying that something was off about him. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured it was just her being a little cynical, like usual. But as time went on, I started feeling more uncomfortable with how she was acting around him. Then, about 3 weeks ago, something happened that really set me off. I had planned a weekend getaway with Tom, and I invited Sarah to join us because we were going to a place she had always wanted to visit. I thought it would be a fun trip for all of us. At first, she said she couldn't come, but last minute, she changed her mind and decided to tag along. Everything seemed fine at first, but on the second day of the trip, things got weird. Sarah pulled me aside while Tom was out taking a hike. She looked really upset and told me that I needed to wake up and realize that Tom was not who he seemed. She claimed that he had been flirting with her during dinner the night before and that he'd been sending her signals that he was interested in her, not me. I was immediately defensive and asked her to explain what she was talking about. But she was very vague, only saying things like, he kept looking at me a certain way, and he's way too charming. It's all part of his act. She also mentioned how he'd given her this weird vibe when they were alone for a minute when I went to the bathroom. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I immediately confronted Tom about it when we were alone later that evening. He was taken aback and said he hadn't even realized Sarah was interpreting things that way. He told me that he had been trying to be friendly and inclusive because he knew how close I was to her. He denied any flirtation and said he was surprised Sarah would accuse him of such things. To be honest, I believed him. I knew Tom wasn't like that, and I had never seen him do anything that made me doubt his loyalty to me. The next day, Sarah started acting distant, and it felt like there was a weird tension between the three of us. I tried to ignore it and not let it ruin the trip, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. After the trip, Sarah continued to distance herself from both Tom and me. I reached out to her a couple of times to talk about what happened, but she just kept saying she didn't want to get involved anymore, and that she was feeling uncomfortable around us. A few days later, I found out that Sarah had been telling some mutual friends about the situation. She had said that Tom was definitely interested in her and that I was too naive to see it. She made it seem like I was being blind to what was going on right in front of me. One of our friends came to me and told me about the conversation she'd had with Sarah, and that's when I realized how much Sarah had been spreading this narrative. She'd made me out to be some kind of fool, and she'd implied that Tom was being disloyal behind my back. This really hurt me, especially because it wasn't even remotely true. At that point, I was done. I reached out to Sarah and told her that I didn't want her spreading lies about Tom and I. I told her she could either apologize for the way she'd been acting and for what she'd been saying, or I would have to cut ties with her. She called me and started crying, saying that I was choosing Tom over her and that I didn't understand how hurt she was by the way Tom was treating her. But none of what she said made any sense to me. She was acting like she was the victim in all of this when, in reality, she was the one who was spreading false rumors and creating drama where there was none. I told her I couldn't have someone in my life who was going to sabotage my relationship over insecurities. I said that if she couldn't respect my relationship and stop trying to tear it down, then I couldn't continue being friends with her. After that, I asked her to leave my house, where she had been staying temporarily. I gave her a few hours to pack up and go, and she left in a huff. It's been about 2 weeks since then, and I haven't heard from her. I've been thinking a lot about whether I overreacted. I get that Sarah might have been hurt by how Tom was acting around her during the trip, but I don't think she should have taken that out on me or made up lies about him. I understand that sometimes friends get jealous or feel left out, but I don't think I should have to choose between my relationship and my best friend. So, AITA for kicking my best friend out after she lied about my boyfriend? I really feel like she crossed a line, but I'm also wondering if I was too harsh in cutting her off like that. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.